Yes, today in Jeddah, Suhaila, Ukraine, and America are finally meeting. It's finally happening after all this time. Before the meeting, the United States disclosed that Zelensky had expressed his apologies to Trump through a letter. What could possibly be in that letter? U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio mentioned that the war can only conclude with diplomatic efforts. We will ask you for this, and of course, while Elon Musk's statements targeting Ukraine continue on one side, he indicated that there had been an access problem and that a cyber attack was launched, identifying Ukraine as the target.
Yes. Today, a significant contact is taking place between Ukraine and the United States. Why is it so important? Because in the Oval Office at the White House, in front of the world, Trump and Zelensky's discussion, or rather, the humiliation of Zelensky, is taking place. After the humiliation, the two countries will meet for the first time to discuss how they can repair and return their bilateral relations to their previous state. Because the United States has nearly suspended all its aid to Ukraine. It is neither supplying weapons nor sharing intelligence. In addition, you are doing this to a country that is fighting and to your ally. Consequently, Ukraine's worst-case scenario has now unfolded. What steps can they take to swiftly activate the support from America's aid? This is Ukraine's top priority. How can they revive their bilateral relations? The Ukrainian team will raise this question in Jeddah and of course will present their draft ceasefire agreement, because Ukraine has established a formula with the support of France and England. Let's not rush to sign an urgent final peace agreement or a final ceasefire agreement. We should take our time and agree to a ceasefire for a duration of 1 month without rushing into it. They are saying that only air and sea conflicts should cease, and there should be no airstrikes. It is also mentioned that America should back this. We are unsure if they will support it.
I don't want to distract myself, but at this point, Ukraine's attacks on Russia are not in question.
Yes, I'll come to that too.
What is it?
Until the end, Ukraine launched the largest airstrike against Russia. When I came to the broadcast, the number of drones mentioned was 337. If I'm not mistaken, it was only 67. Look, a total of 91 drones have been launched, with Kursk being the most affected, followed by Moscow, and we can only say that they have struck their targets. There are hit homes, damaged buildings, and fatalities. Right now, I'm looking at Russian sites continuously. They haven't provided a clear number of casualties, but I see separate reports indicating that 4 people died in Kursk and 1 in Moscow. We might not know the total number of casualties yet, but they are carrying out the heaviest airstrike to date. As they sit down with the U.S. to talk about a ceasefire, what is America saying now? U.S. Secretary of State Rubio is leading the delegation in this meeting, and before going to Saudi Arabia, he said in New York, "Today, we have no intention of creating a map of Jeddah. Defining lines on maps is also not part of our current agenda. Our focus today lies in listening to Ukraine while keeping our conversation succinct, because America says Ukraine is obliged to show us certain things." You genuinely seem eager for peace. We believed you wanted a peace deal, but Zelensky's discussion shifted our perspective entirely. We had to implement sanctions, meaning we had to take some actions. Today, they will discuss the concessions Ukraine is willing to offer and what they expect in return. This is essential. Therefore, the United States still needs to do something before military aid and intelligence can be sent back to Ukraine. Act. They insist that you demonstrate your willingness for peace and your realistic commitment to this agenda, and that you will need to make concessions as well. Rubio reiterated this point, stating that both sides must concede, again highlighting Ukraine's situation. He stated that it is impossible for Ukraine to reach its borders before 2014. Look, he says 2014. He does not refer to 2022 and avoids discussing the recent major invasion or the ongoing war, including Crimea, of course, including even the first occupied parts of Crimea and Donbass. You will not be able to return to your previous territories, your old lands. Thus, Zelensky said the war started in Crimea and would end there, claiming we will take it back, but he can no longer say that. These remarks are made because Ukraine, which is in a losing position for America, is the side that must make significant concessions.